Jeff and Reagan, look at that.
And Cinnamon.
Oh, the dog's there too.
All
right, looks like
Mayor Faulconer.
Oh, there's Mayor. All right, Todd.
Yeah, I got Mayor Faulconer here too.
it's great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this webinar. My name is Todd Major. I'm the 2020 NAIOP president for San Diego, and I have the honor of doing that in the year of COVID. And certainly, what a strange year it's been so far. I think that if somebody had asked me what my prediction was for things that we'd be working on as an organization in 2020, it certainly wouldn't be a pandemic. And I think when we speak to the mayor and Commissioner Gaspar, I'm sure they'll echo the same comments. It certainly has been one of the craziest times, and I think that COVID has completely changed our lives, our businesses, and our perspectives. And as such, I mean, it's evident in how we're meeting right now. Normally we'd be in a ballroom listening to the mayor give us an update, and here we are in a Zoom environment, and I'm speaking to a bunch of little boxes like on the Brady Bunch. So it's definitely a new time, and I think I've been impressed with how the industry has adapted and changed to this period. And I think most importantly, despite all the health and economic devastation that we have going on around us, we're really lucky to have some truly great leaders in San Diego, and they've really, I think, put their best foot forward in helping us, as evident in the newly updated requirements that were released last night. I think thanks to the efforts of the mayor and the county commissioner Cox and Gaspar, those efforts resulted in us moving ahead into stage two, a more advanced state of phase two, which is fantastic. I think it's fantastic for the city, for the county, and it really speaks volumes, I think, to the level of leadership that these folks have provided for us. So with that, I would like to turn it over to the mayor. Some housekeeping issues first. If you've got any questions, we've muted everybody, so we'll be monitoring the chat. So if you do have any questions, please submit them via the chat, and either myself or Craig Benedetto will moderate those and ask the mayor accordingly. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mayor Faulconer, and thank you for being here, sir. I truly appreciate your time.
No, thank you, and I hope everybody can hear me. I know we have close to 100 folks on the Zoom. I would much rather be in a ballroom with all of you, talking about a lot of other things than we're going to talk about today. But I appreciate your comments, Todd. We as a region, I think, have worked pretty darn well together. I think Supervisor Gaspar is going to be on the Zoom at some point here today as well. I think that's the strength of ours. I can tell you I'm on calls a lot with other mayors across the state. They do not have the type of relationship that we do in San Diego. And so that's something we work at and we should never take for granted. But it's important, particularly in times like this, that we move forward together as a region, united with, I think, two pretty important goals that we've shared since day one, which is A, keeping people healthy, keeping people safe, and then B, almost immediately starting to plan for that time that we would safely reopen and get business going again. This is something that we have been working on for, over a month and a half. And as you rightfully noted, yesterday, with our ability to move forward into a deeper phase two was incredibly important to us, to have in-restaurant dining, now in-store retail. And we've been able to achieve that because San Diegans have taken this seriously. They have followed all of the rules, if you will, that they've been asked to follow. And we've seen that. We've seen that in the metrics that we track every day. The county tracks on our the flattening of the curve, which we have flattened, the work that our phenomenal hospital system has done, the capacity, our first responders, the providers, so all of the things that we did to help prevent a surge, first and foremost, and then I think as importantly, make sure that we have the capacity as we start to talk about reopening and keeping people safe. One thing that's the hallmark of everything that we're doing on reopening is it's not going back and doing things the way they were, right? We're not saying go back to normal. We're saying we're going to go back in a new normal with different precautions and all of the things that all of us know about: social distancing, temperature checks, masks, everything, designed to keep people healthy. But at the same time, a realization that we have to get back to work for all of, I think, the obvious reasons, and to do that in a healthy and safe manner. And so when I look at what we have been able to do, and we have been leading the state, and I think that's a good thing, because whether it was our beach plan, that we were one of the first regions in the state to open up our beaches. San Diego's been doing a remarkable job on following the rules, keeping safe, our neighborhood parks, et cetera, what we've done from a business reopening standpoint. And we're going to continue, as you know, to say if we can open safely, let's have more industries open safely as well. And so part of the proposal that went to the governor's office, again, that the county board passed, was to say, let us help pilot a program here in San Diego County that had my full support. It allows us to go into phase 3. Things like barbershops, salons, gyms, others that have been waiting to reopen, have been ready to reopen safely, and to put up that plan in place, monitor it together, and as I said, to keep us going and to keep us healthy and safe. And so there's a lot of work that we still have ahead of us. Constantly during my briefings every day, the county has briefings every day, we're encouraging folks to follow all of the social distancing, all of the things to keep us safe, to not give back the gains that we have made as a region. Those are hard-fought gains. I mean, it's been a couple of months now. And so our continued message will be, let's get back to work. Let's do it safely. Let's monitor it. Let's track it. And let's hold everybody accountable as we do it. I believe San Diegans are going to continue to do a remarkable job. I think that's really been a definition of how, as I said, that we've approached this from day one. We've been trying to do a few things, and I'll just maybe only talk for a couple more minutes, and I don't know, Todd, if you wanted me to pause and ask questions. I don't want this to be a very long soliloquy, but we've been trying to adapt, obviously here in city government, on doing things differently, just like these calls and everything we've been doing with technology. All of our permitting is now online. You don't have to bring plans down to City Hall. All of the things that we've done, which I think has been good to force some of these technology changes. Not only online permitting, we're doing online inspections now virtually, because look, it's incredibly important that we keep construction going, we keep development going. That was one of the things that we pushed very hard on as a Southern California region. Northern California shut down construction for a long time, unfortunately. But again, we're trying to set the tone of, let's be smart about how we're doing business. Let's keep business operating, and let's keep people healthy. I just released my May revision to the budget, I think yesterday. Time flies, all the days. We're going to be making some difficult decisions, just like every business is trying to make, but I've really tried to set the tone of, let's make some of these decisions now. Let's look towards not just the short term, but the longer term in terms of the organization, with a absolute protection of key services. So our police, our fire, trash, water, sewer, all of that, we're going to keep absolutely whole in the city of San Diego. We're going to make some reductions in other areas, but that's just an unfortunate part of what we're going to do. But to some of those who are saying, we're going to put first responders on the chopping block, we're absolutely not going to do that in San Diego. So it's really been, I'll just wrap it up as I started. It's really been a team effort, city and the county. We are going to continue, as I said, to push to reopen safely, just like we've done on the beaches, just like we've done and we're doing now in businesses, offices, et cetera. And hopefully that is going to serve us well, continue to get the ability to do things differently than the rest of the state, because I think we've been preparing for a very long time. And I will just say lastly, we've involved, our business community. We've involved NAIOP. We've involved, everybody to say, hey, we're the businesses that know how to keep our employees safe. We know how to keep our customers safe, develop plans that are realistic, that are ready to go. And so as we begin to reopen more in earnest, that's the approach that I am certainly going to take both here locally and advocating up in Sacramento, to let us do the right thing, let us stay healthy, let us continue to work together. But doing it with a sense of urgency, because the downsides of the lockdown are very real as well. And so those are some of my thoughts, Todd. I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in. And like I said, I'm happy to answer questions or however you want to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thank you very much. What I'd like to do is, Craig Benedetto has been cataloging some questions received from our members and attendees on the call. So I'm going to turn it over to Craig, and he's going to lead a little question period.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for joining us today. Appreciate it, and appreciate all your team has been doing. Since you touched on the budget, I'll go to the question that touches on the budget. Has the city of San Diego got any federal funding to keep people employed at the city level? And what does it anticipate in receiving? If it hasn't received money, what does it anticipate receiving in the future? And if it has, will there be more?
Yeah, no, we did receive some money. Cities with a certain population more got direct allocation of the CARES dollars that I think probably many of you have heard about. And we really worked, Craig, to get some additional clarification and flexibility to be able to use those dollars. For example, a lot of our public safety costs, which we got the approval to do just in the last couple of weeks. So we got those dollars. The amount that we received in San Diego was $248 million. I'm going to use all of that. We're going to use it to help with our public safety. We're helping all the work that we're doing on issues of homelessness, as an example, at the convention center, keeping that very vulnerable population safe, healthy. Been a remarkable effort. Again, city and the county working pretty closely together. Have some opportunities again on some hotel purchases that we're working on, and it's going to be a part better for the long term, I think, and all that. And using some of it, announced yesterday, more dollars for small business relief. Because the one thing that I can't stress enough when we talk about how important it is to reopen, that's where, that's where our dollars come from. It's from a strong economy. It's from consumer confidence. Our dollars in our state budget don't, our city budget, don't come from the state. Don't really come from Washington, D.C. It comes from sales tax, property tax, and hotel tax, TOT tax. And so when we can get that economy moving again, that's how we keep, libraries, rec centers open, fire, police, all of that. That is absolutely economic driven. So the seriousness of which we have taken all of these reopening procedures and the new procedures that we're doing, again, is designed to say we're going to keep everybody safe. We're not going to give up our gains. We do not want to go and have any relapses, and because it's in everybody's interest, not just from a health perspective, but absolutely from an economic perspective to keep us operating and to get our economy moving again. We have to do that.
So another question, Mr. Mayor, I know you're not the superintendent, but schools and daycare for working families are a real important part of businesses getting back to work. What are your thoughts about schools, daycare, and when they might be operating?
That question hits the nail on the head, because they're absolutely essential. I mean, said the other day, daycare is economic development. In fact, on some of the money that the city got and the county board got as well, we matched that together. $5 million apiece for $10 million for daycare. And there may be more because you have to have that ability to do that. I have spoken with the Superintendent Cindy Martin. They are focused a lot right now, Craig, and everybody who's listening, on what are the opportunities and options that they have for the fall. They haven't made the determinations yet, but they're looking at, I think you've seen in some of the news reports, a variety of different options on having some facilities open, partial, operating, et cetera. So I don't want to speak for them, but I will agree with the premise of the question, which is education and schools are incredibly important to open safely, to do it right. And so those are all the discussions that we are all having right now in real time, because September is going to come before you know it, or August in this case, I guess, for some of the schools. And so how do you do that in the new normal, the new environment? The school district is having a series of stakeholder meetings. They've started those now before they make their kind of determination on how that's going to look like. But absolutely, when we talk about reopening the economy, having daycare, having affordable daycare, having options for daycare is important, and the schools, they absolutely go hand in hand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not surprisingly, a lot of our members, like most San Diegans, have very active lifestyles. And so there is some question about, beyond what's been allowed now in terms of the access to parks and the beaches. When do you think that more access will occur? Parking lots reopening, being able to enjoy the parks, maybe being able to go out and do boating, recreational boating with folks perhaps not your family, your quarantine family. Is that in the cards anytime soon?
Yeah, I think my answer, a lot of different categories you just relayed there, but in general, the answer is yes. As we continue to show that everybody's doing the right thing, we'll probably have more information, particularly on some of the beaches and parking lots next week. This will be a big weekend for us to go through the test again, which we've done pretty darn well on Memorial Day. And so you will see, starting next week, we'll have more info on parking lots, Craig, on loosening some of those restrictions, some of the restrictions in Balboa Park as an example, beaches as well. And again, that's because folks have been doing the right thing. And so I want to continue to have us as a city and as a county to show the state how we can do it right. That's why we fought so hard when it was, talked about that all beaches were going to shut down. We said, look, San Diego, we had a great plan. It was a plan that was developed by our lifeguards. Every single coastal city helped develop it. Our county public health was involved in it. And that's one of the reasons why it's worked so well. We're taking that exact same approach on neighborhood parks, regional parks, again, on things that make sense. And so you will see starting next week, as you've seen all along when we started with, opening neighborhood parks, opening the beach, that continued march, if you will, because San Diegans have, as I said, have listened, and they've acted accordingly.
So in terms of other types of activities that might occur, I know we've read about, some of the hospitals and medical providers, they've been busy dealing with the COVID piece, but in a lot of ways, because elective procedures and things like that have not been allowed, they've also had some struggles and have been laying off people as well. So it's not just, folks in the tourism industry that have been hit by this in San Diego. You've got a lot of medical professionals, white collar, well-educated folks. What do you think is the prognosis for those kinds of elective procedures, medical office buildings, things like that opening back up?
Yeah, they're looking at all of that right now, and I don't want to speak for the county, but that is something that is incredibly important. A lot of those procedures, when we talk about folks elective and even non-elective, right? Cancer treatments, others. I mean, that's for our healthcare system. And so we are fortunate to have the system that we do in San Diego with our providers that are, not only, leading the state, but leading the world. When I think of Scripps, Sharp, UCSD, Kaiser, those are all the discussions that they're having right now. And so I would leave that to others that probably have more up to the date on what they're looking at in the coming days and the coming weeks. But this is something that they've all been planning for in terms of capacity, in terms of employees, and in terms of giving people those options back that span all of the healthcare environment.
So on something I know that you're very, very involved with, which has to do with tourism, the convention center, and also with the homelessness issue in San Diego. I don't know that over the last year, as you were working hard to try and get the TOT measure passed to expand the convention center, we would be talking about it as a homeless facility, but it's certainly serving a much needed purpose right now. What do you think the next step is in terms of the convention center, providing housing for the homeless. What's your plan for addressing that?
Yeah, just before I got on this Zoom call, I was on another Zoom call with a lot of our larger hotels in San Diego, and talking about hotel reopenings and the issue of the convention center. Let me just take that in kind of two bites. The work that's happening at the convention center is incredible. Very proud of it. We have gotten not just the folks out of our bridge shelters because the social distancing wasn't enough. But so we moved all of that entire operation in the convention center, but also brought in off the streets about 600 more folks into a safe, clean, sanitary environment with all of our providers there, Alpha Project, Father Joe's Villages, Veterans Village. All of the work that's happening there is working in terms of keeping people healthy, the daily temperature checks. The fact that over this entire period of time, there's over 1,200 people that are there. They've had 4 positive tests, all asymptomatic, because nobody with symptoms is allowed in. I think that speaks volumes to how you can have a group dynamic in a group setting and safely actually operate it. We were talking about that with the hotel folks on the phone. And so the goal, of course, is that's a temporary transition. We're really trying, I could spend a whole hour, which I won't, on how we're trying to use that momentum to actually get people into a place of their own, cutting through a lot of the bureaucracy. We have HUD on site, we have the VA on site, really with the support of the, folks all the way up to the White House level and others, trying to use San Diego as a case study in how we do things differently. So a lot of positive momentum. But the objective for the convention center ultimately is to return it back to the economic engine that it is, and to get that going again. We all know how important travel and tourism and hospitality is to us in our region in San Diego. And so as, again, we are talking about phase 3, and phases don't really matter, I suppose, to most folks, but it's really how can we get our travel and tourism safely reopened. And again, the hotel industry has spent a lot of time on that. I was just on a call with them. They have some pretty specific metrics that they're going to be forwarding to the governor's office here next week. And so it's going to take all of us to say, hey, we are, just like we've done on restaurants, just like we've done in in-store retail, San Diego is safely ready to open. We're going to monitor it. We're going to have all of the health metrics. And so that will be a coming push, obviously, from the hotel industry. Just to hear, one of the hotels that had 950 people working there, they have 48 people working there right now. That's just one example, right, of the devastation that this means in people's lives that are not employed, what it means to our economy, what it means to our budgets. And so that becomes a driving force. They also mentioned that they're concerned about some of the groups will be going to other states. And so this is something that is incredibly important for us, as I said, to keep on top of, to help drive that conversation up in Sacramento, but to do it with everything that we are doing. It's all based on, these are the new reality of what we're going to be doing with new metrics, new procedures to do it safely, cleanly, all of the above. Has to be done with our public health folks. And again, I think that, speaking from some experience on what's happening in other parts of the state, the relationship that we have as a region is a strength of ours. And we need to use that to our advantage as we continue to push for safe reopenings in other industries like the hotel industry.
So I know you've been working on this with your team over there, and big shout out to both Mike Hansen at the planning department and Elise Lowe at Development Services for their efforts to keep the ships running there on the planning side and on the development services side. But a lot of folks have retail properties, retail interests in those properties that do food service and things like that. What is the city doing to look at restrictions and right-of-way usage to allow for outdoor seating?
We're looking at all that right now to help. And I've given pretty clear direction that let's really, the sky's the limit. Let's do it safe. Let's do things differently. Let's not be, because it's a different world. So all of that, you will see us, and with your help, Craig, and the folks that are on the phone, I want all those good ideas and good suggestions. We just started maybe somewhat analogous, but a slow streets program. I don't know if you've heard about it, which is the ability to, in certain neighborhoods to give people more, block off car access. Residents can, of course, go do it, but just allow people to get out more and, bike, walk, whatever you want to do out in the street as a pilot program. And it's been wildly successful. We just announced a couple more in Councilmember Montgomery's district yesterday. So all of that just goes to, I think, the point of looking at things through a new lens now on outdoor activity, outdoor seating, outdoor ability to have economic development. And so as you come up, Craig, with your own thoughts and ideas from the organizations, work with my team, work with Mike Hansen, Elise Lowe, CEO, you will find welcome. The answer should be, how do we get to yes? And that's what I'm looking for.
I think we have time for one more question, Mr. Mayor, and I'll take the opportunity to say a big shout out to CO as well. She has been awesome. She was awesome to work with on the Recover Task Force and taking our input on the commercial real estate side. And thank you for putting good people like her and Almas and the rest of the team there in place to take all this input. I'm sure not a day goes by where they got 100 different calls. So thank you for that. A question about evictions and landlords. There's the city adopted and the council just extended the eviction moratorium. There are a couple bills in Sacramento, one on the residential, one on the commercial side, that focus on tenants, but it seems like the commercial real estate, the owner side, the property owner side is lost. And so the question that keeps coming up is, what are jurisdictions, what are states, what are others doing to try and look out for the commercial real estate folks, the property owners who also have their own obligations, whether it's paying property taxes, obviously, or paying their own vendors, or paying their investors, the banks, and the others, the mortgage holders. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you hit it head on, and it has to be we have to do a better job on looking at that balance again for economic. Yes, the council moved forward an extra 30 days. I think you are going to see a lot more activity up at the state at this point, Craig. That you're right, that seems to be where a lot of discussions are happening. But the issue for landlords for commercial property is incredibly important. That relief is important too, right? The bills go all the way around, and so as we work together, and we gave a lot of rent relief, in the city for a variety of things, right? The folks that we lease to. Because I realize that's important. It's what we need is businesses to stay open, right? We need a business infrastructure for people to go back to work too, and so that has to be part of the conversation. Part of one of the reasons why we did our small business relief fund so quickly here from the city, and I just added an extra $13 million to it yesterday. I am acutely concerned that I need our businesses to stay in business. Because if they don't, as we get through this, and we will, we have to have the opportunities for folks to go back to work. And so from the commercial real estate side of that equation, that is incredibly important that we look for your help, your relief, and policies that aren't going to work against it to getting people back to work. So as we do that here in not only at the city, but I think increasingly looking at the state to make sure that message is heard as well. And you will have my full support again, because we have to keep our properties up and running. We have to keep our businesses going, because those bills don't go away either. And that's just a truism that some of us, I think, know and understand, maybe not all of us, but you'll have my help and support on all of that.
Well, NAIOP and our members stand as a resource, Mr. Mayor. I did get a question about what can we all do to help, and what can our members do individually. I don't know if you want to maybe end on that note as a parting shot to our members.
Oh, I will. Keep doing what you're doing. As you all know, and I look to, again, I think one of the strengths of NAIOP, because of you are an economic engine in this region, and your voice is incredibly important, certainly has been to me. Will continue for the rest of the year here, which is why I love coming to the annual lunch and the not just the lunch, but the work that we do, obviously, in City Hall all of the time to make sure that we're promoting policies that help you become successful and not going down a path that's going to make it harder to do business in the city of San Diego. And so as you look at it, Craig, and you're certainly very familiar with this, I need to continue to weigh in with members of certainly our city council from time to time when some of these key issues come up. But also, as I mentioned earlier, from the statewide level, you can count on me to be vocal support to what our commercial real estate industry means, not being susceptible to a variety of potential new taxes that folks are talking about on commercial property that would just get passed through to small businesses. That does not make sense. So I think it'll be important as we look to coming on the other side of this, that we are working together. And so keep that communication going, which NAIOP is very good at doing. And appreciate all the work that you do, Craig, on behalf of the organization. That it's going to be an important year because, again, we have to tell that story for folks that don't understand that story, how important these properties are and our small businesses, medium-sized businesses are for our economy. That's just a fact. So that communication is more important now than it probably ever has been. We were in the midst of a tremendously great economic situation, obviously, I think not just in San Diego, but other parts of the state and the country. That has changed almost overnight. And so now it becomes very important to be able to educate decision makers, policy makers up and down the state and in Sacramento about the needs of the industry, which is the needs for business, which is what we're all talking about, jobs, and to protect and promote policies that help and fight against those, they're going to do the wrong thing. So I think that becomes probably more important, as I said, and I'll wrap up on that in the next couple of months than it probably has in the last couple of years.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We really sincerely appreciate your time, and I think more importantly, your steady hand and your careful but forceful approach in moving us forward as a community. We also appreciate, as Craig mentioned, all the work you've done in collaborating with the commercial real estate industry and listening to our concerns and helping. We need your help more than ever right now, and everything you said today is very much appreciated. So
thank you, Todd.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Thank you much.
Our next speaker, while many of you have had, I think, the benefit of working in the city of San Diego, we don't often, as an industry, interact with the county. And I think now it's really become apparent with the COVID issue that we really should be spending more time interacting with the region's largest governmental entity. Even though they do provide local governmental services for the unincorporated county, they also have numerous departments that obviously we don't need a reminder of today, and that includes the county's public health department. Supervisor Kristin Gaspar represents the 3rd Supervisor District, which stretches from Encinitas to Escondido. She was elected to the Board of Supervisors in 2016. Prior to that, she served as the mayor to the city of Encinitas, where I am currently sitting. She's a proud mom. I know that for a fact, and cheer coach, and a co-owner with her husband's small business. So we're very appreciative to have Supervisor Gaspar here to join us. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I saw Michael Golden's on this call. His daughter was on my national championship squad, La Costa Canyon Lady Mavericks. It's good to see all of your faces. There's nothing normal about what we're doing today. And I don't know about you, I am getting tired of these Zoom calls. I'm thankful for them. But my goodness, if I have to look at my face one more second after this pandemic is over, I might lose my mind. So I want you to know I've experienced this pandemic from multiple vantage points. I get a little frustrated when that mantra is put out there that we're all in this together. It is true, we're all in this together, but we're in this in much different ways. So your COVID experience can be dramatically different, and it's been really hard to sit in this chair because every day I get phone calls, people that want to vent, people that want to cry. And listen, I want to vent and cry with all of you because first, as a parent, I can safely say that I'm failing at the homeschooling thing. Like, it's just truly terrible in my household. But on Facebook, everybody else seems to be thriving. So I'm not sure what that is, but if you are a parent on this phone call today, fess up, because some of you have to be struggling. I mean, so much so the principal will call to see if my children are still alive. So anyway, they have 2 essential workers, and we can't sit at the table and administer this schooling, and it's really hard. I actually had a breakdown on the parent Zoom call for my 4th grader because all the parents were in pajamas. And it was just something that simple, just this visual that I had to be at work. I knew I needed to be at home too, but I can't make that happen right now. And my husband's still working. As mentioned in my bio, we own a small business. We have 150 people that we're really worried about right now, because like all of you, this is a numbers game. It's a cash on hand game. And for so many business owners in this county, it's a matter of how long can I keep people employed and on payroll? How long can I pay their medical benefits? And I've just received the sobering news about 5 minutes ago that our unemployment in the San Diego region is at an all-time high, 30% unemployment in this region. And it's really scary because I guarantee many of these jobs are not coming back based on the stories I hear all day. What this means is that we have 500,000 San Diegans out of a job. It's staggering. When I look at the numbers in terms of San Diegans who are now food insecure, it's at an all-time high. 600,000 people in this county have absolutely no idea where their very next meal is coming from. We have a problem. And as an elected official, most of you had zero idea what we even did or what we even supervised, 65 days ago. But now you get to see our faces because it is the fact that the county is in charge of public health. And so a radio show host was talking about our public health officers too. It's doubtful that any of you knew that our public health officer even existed 65 days ago. And I was cracking up on a radio program the other day when they were talking about those cicadas. Those are those bugs that live in the East Coast underground for like 17 years, and then they come out when the temperature is just right in the earth. They're really creepy, by the way. And they come out to mate, and they just fly everywhere, and they're blind, so they smack into you. But the cicadas came out, and they were talking about these public health officers that nobody had any clue existed, that have been tucked away in the basements of county buildings everywhere, that suddenly were out, and they were everywhere. And guess what? They have a lot of power. So all day long, I get calls saying, can you do this? Can you do that? I had my mask with me. Oh, here it is. This is my favorite call I get all day. When do we get rid of the masks? I'm there with you. I'm a terrible mask person. And it creeps me out, actually, to walk around everywhere. I don't know if you agree with this, but don't you feel sick when you put the mask on? I just automatically feel like I'm infected with something. But the public health officer gets to call these shots. They have an enormous amount of power that not even I, as a seated supervisor, knew existed 65 days ago. But your board of supervisors has no authority over the public health officer. So we've gotten this team of people together that we have to work with. What I will say is going well in San Diego is collaboration. And early on, you saw your elected officials, local, state, federal, we all had to play nice in the sandbox. We're now at a point in time where we're starting to throw sand in each other's eyes and need a reminder every once in a while, but it's been a long time. We collaborated so well across our hospital system. We have 22 hospital partners in this region. It was incredibly important to bring them all to one table. Because remember when this all started, the goal was to flatten the curve Although I do need to point out that there never was a San Diego specific curve data that was San Diego, let me look at our curve to see where we're at. After a while, the public health officer said that it was a theoretical curve that we were flattening. But okay, the main thing is we needed capacity in our hospital system. That's why we were going to shut things down. We were going to take the time to build that capacity. And we did just that because your hospital partners chose to work together. Instead of working in silos, they created one hospital system. And we continue to work that way today. I helped with a variety of projects early on that got us where we needed to be with extra capacity. So I worked on a project with UCSD to do some creative alternative care and in their student housing. So with the help of Jerome's Furniture, who supplied us with beds, and Serta, and Mattress Firm, I was about to forget the last one, we quickly stood up 350 extra care beds at UCSD in a site where doctors and nurses could live alongside patients. Pleased to report to you today, 0 of those beds are occupied. Also worked on an effort with Palomar in Escondido, and we stood up a temporary medical station inside 2 empty floors of the new Palomar Hospital. And that is another good news story, in so much that we have 202 beds that are empty there today. So we have over 500 surge beds, so to speak, outside of our hospital system. Pleased to report to you that our hospitals are at 40% capacity at this time. Capacity is the name of the game. As we move forward, make no mistake, more people will get sick. And tragically, more people will pass from COVID-19. The goal was not eradication. And I think that's really important to understand, that we just needed to protect people the best way that we could and make sure we maintain the hospital capacity, because we were fighting a virus we didn't know a lot about. But now we're fighting a lot of what I'd say unintended casualties in this battle too. And that's our local economy. And make no mistake, it's going to take San Diego a really long time to recover. I've worked alongside so many business sectors to get everyone up and ready to go. These safety plans and protocols are not sustainable. So let's be honest, this has to be a very temporary situation, because what we're asking our businesses to do it's simply not sustainable. I know this because I own a business. And even though I have an essential business that's been open the entire time, literally overnight, we lost 60–70% revenue given the situation that we're in today. So it's lovely to get doors open on businesses, but it's going to be a while before they're even breaking even. I hate saying things like that. Sorry. It's going to be a while before they're breaking even. And remember that we rely so much on tourism in our economy here locally. And the beach experience isn't what it used to be. If you've been there, I take my kids, they want to go, and I wade in the water while they play, and you get shouted out about every 5 minutes because you have to keep moving. So then I do some jumping jacks and some water aerobics to keep moving, but that's not a beach experience, and that's not what people are going to come to San Diego to do. You know, and it's lovely that we've received word. It looks like some of our zoo, the wild animal park, can qualify under an outdoor museum. But if you've tried to hike the wild animal park or the zoo, you probably figure out quickly why they have a tram there. But that can't be open right now. So we're going to see a decline in our tourism. We have to rebuild, and we can do it, and we can be stronger and more resilient in the end. But this is going to take a while. We're talking about baby steps where we are today. As you know, we got the good news last night at 8 p.m. that we were able to get our restaurants and in retail back open, which is great. That's a huge victory. I'm really happy about that. But I took about 5 minutes to be happy about it, and then quickly transitioned to the next thing, because this is an uphill climb the whole way to the end. And to me, there's no end in sight right now. There's so much work to be done. I've never worked more hours, but the reason I'm willing to be first in, last out is because I don't want to do this for one more second. So it's worth that investment in time. I need all of you to be strong advocates right now. We have a proposal in the hands of our governor. It looks like this packet and this packet. I was a little irritated by one of the supervisors on the press briefing the other day that didn't vote to support our pilot program to help us work into phase 3 quicker, when he said we issued a letter to the governor. We didn't issue a letter to the governor. It was a well thought out plan. Think about this for a minute. We're not asking to unsafely open San Diego. We have the alignment of our public health officer, 20 hospital partners, our clinical leadership team. They're all behind this pilot program moving forward. And what we're asking for is not unreasonable to be open today. We're asking for youth to be returned to practice. Mental health and wellness of our young people, it's just gone down the drain during this period of time. We've lost 2 high school seniors in North County alone to suicide. These are 2 beautiful human beings who should not be gone, but they are. This has been devastating for our young people. We can't even wrap our minds around this. Think about what it's like to be a young person right now. Restoring some bit of normalcy to these kids' lives instead of technology all day long would go a long way. And so what we've asked, and I've developed with our youth sports community, 215 local organizations donated 3.5, 4 hours time on a Zoom call. We created a robust safety protocol to get our kids back on the fields. That's included in this pilot program. This is smaller groups of 12. They're able to come back to practice and drills. Very reasonable approach there. We've asked for other things in this as well. Now, salon services, look at this. I need my highlights back. I need a haircut. I know you all do too. By the way, men, razors are not broken at this point in time. I still don't understand the beard part of this pandemic. So gentlemen, can you please shave? But anyway, that's just my own personal thought on that. But our salons, I know, I'm looking at you, Craig. Our salons, we've asked for 25% occupancy in the salon. Again, very reasonable. And by the way, this is an industry that's guided by robust safety protocols already, and they're going to take further steps. This one's not a favorite of mine. I gave up on the gym long ago. There were days that I actually cared to attend the fitness facilities. Not anymore. But for all of you that are healthier than me and don't just sit around with a drawer full of, let's see, right now I have peanut M&Ms and Skittles. And want to return to your fitness facilities, we have a 25% return in the fitness facilities. I lost my screen as well. And then we've asked for our pools to reopen. This is Drowning Prevention Month, ladies and gentlemen. And we have no opportunities to teach our young people to swim. We have a number of pools out there in our communities, swim labs that are teaching kids how to swim. We have an aquatics PT program for people who can't weight bear and people who are post-op and they need to get back into the pool to do their exercise, but they can't even do that right now. So we've asked for a reopening of our pools as well. And then a return to church. Our faith-based community really needs our help right now because it's unfathomable that 65 days we haven't had this opportunity and people are really suffering right now. We've also asked for a return to in-person recovery groups. AA's done a brilliant job offering opportunities online for people, but this is counter to recovery, the recovery journey. You need to see people, you need to interact with people, and it can't be on a computer. So we've asked for a return to groups, therapeutic groups in a smaller setting, groups of 12. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the phase 3 that we've asked for in this next portion moving forward. We're not moving forward in an unsafe manner. We need your advocacy though, because the governor's reviewing this plan. And honestly, this is our last good faith effort with this governor before I lose it. So Friday is it. I've set an artificial deadline to hear back from the governor. If we do not receive a response on this carefully thought through pilot program that has all the metrics you need to know when to take a step forward or back for San Diego, and by the way, no elected official hundreds of miles away knows what's best for our community. We have boots on the ground here. We have the leadership it takes here to make smart decisions for our community, mindful of health concerns as well. So again, we have this in the hands of the governor. We need you to write in And it's very simple. All you need to say is that you support San Diego County's pilot program. That's it. Call, flood the office with calls as well, so that we can productively move forward. Baby steps, but constant forward movement, forward progress, or else I don't know where that leaves us. We're already in a bad situation here. So again, I need your help and support. I'm one human being, but I'm here. If you need anything, I'm an elected official, so my contact information is readily available. I have no privacy, and now I'm gonna stop talking at you and take any gentle questions you might have today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate, obviously, all of your leadership efforts on the board. Certainly, this pilot program in San Diego is a game changer for us. I think it's a really phenomenal step forward. And I think without the leadership of folks like yourself on the board, we wouldn't be here. So thank you for that. And with that, Craig has been monitoring the chat line, and I'm going to turn over to him. He's got some questions to ask.
Yeah, I might disappear for a while so I can go shave because I don't want to disappoint the supervisor.
Seriously, get with it, Craig. I want you to get that razor out right now on this call.
You've been talking to my wife, apparently. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you've aged like 15 years.
Uh-oh, that'll do it. It's gone. It's gone tonight. All right.
Someone had to say it, folks. It might as well be me.
We can do a fundraiser, Craig. We can do a fundraiser.
Oh, you're right.
COVID fundraiser. All right. So questions. I don't know. Nobody else wants to hear this. So in terms of the county's role in all of this, Supervisor, things like the requirements for temperature checking, potentially, doing the tracing, contact tracing, things like that. There has been some concern from our folks about liability and how that might flow to the employer or to the property owner. What are your thoughts about that? Because a lot of this is being driven, the concern is being driven by requirements that come out of the county public health department. So there is some, I guess, misunderstanding about the role that the public health department plays, the county health official and the board of supervisors. So maybe you could clarify that as well.
Sure, absolutely. So there are some odd discrepancies in the temperature checks and when it is and is not required. It got a little confusing because the governor allowed the restaurant opportunity, but he's not requiring the temperature checks there. But our workplaces are being asked to do that. So our public health officer makes these rules. And I can share with you that we've pushed hard on her. I have anyway. And there are 3 lines in the sand she has right now. And the only reason she's supportive of moving forward is if these three things stay in place. Number 1, she's a huge proponent of the temperature check. It actually can be just a verbal health screening where you're asked about your health that day if you're not comfortable with the temperature check itself. The second piece that's really important to her is the social distancing piece that's not going to go away anytime soon. And sadly, my least favorite thing is this guy right here. That's not going anywhere anytime soon either. When I say anytime soon, I'm telling you to manage your expectations, be prepared to have these things in place through the end of the year. So it's challenging, right? When you hear things like community surveillance, you should be concerned. You absolutely should be concerned, because I was wondering how we're going to use this contact tracing and potentially wipe out big areas of our workforce, right? Because if you, let's just say someone in your workplace tests positive for COVID-19 and you were a close contact to that person, the patient, first of all, is contacted by one of the tracers, and they ask a series of questions about who you've been in contact with since you started becoming symptomatic. But I asked a question about, well, what if they don't want to answer your questions? And the answer was that our public health officer can actually write a public health order compelling you to answer those questions, enforceable through our local deputies. So it's a pretty serious matter. I want you to know that I didn't fully understand the contact tracing concept at all. I didn't know who these people were. So much so that I enrolled myself in Johns Hopkins Medical School. And I'll show you something cool. This just happened. If we had group gatherings, then I would be at my graduation ceremony. But this is actually my certification from Johns Hopkins. I'm your first county supervisor who's certified contact tracer as well. And the reason I did this is I needed to understand what was going on. So we could have a whole conversation about how contact tracers will be used in this community. But again, I am concerned about how it might wipe out the workforce. That happened in the meat packing plants. I think some of you probably saw those articles of how like an entire workforce was wiped out overnight. They found ways now to adapt so that that doesn't happen. But we have to keep a close watch on what that means for our community and our employers as we move forward.
So we've received some questions, Supervisor, about sort of the health data and what's being provided to the public and what's not. I know the death metric thing was something that when the governor announced that was the initial filter for counties to get through, and obviously he's changed that position. But it does bring the question to light of what information is being provided, what's not. You're probably familiar with a certain pollster in town who's been gathering information from around the world. And in New York, they talk about like the not just the death of people, but what underlying conditions they had, et cetera. But that information is not being provided here. What are your thoughts about that and the data that's being provided to the public?
I would like to see more data presented to the public. We've held back. The public health officer has intentionally, I think, held back on a lot of that data. One thing that was clear early on is they were reluctant to release data that looked good for San Diego because they were afraid what would happen with compliance. My take on it is that we're smart human beings. And when you show me data that looks good, that's encouraging to me to continue to make these smart choices because it's actually helping us in San Diego. It doesn't create defiant behavior. So I'm all about transparency, put the information out there. Neenstat, I think is who you're referring to, has done an incredible job with his reports, but he's been on the phone or through email on several occasions saying, hey, this would be really helpful. One thing I want to point to that the data needs to be separated out is having to do with our border. The border is actually our greatest vulnerability at this time. And for those of you who have followed my work lately, I've been really aggressive about a demand for mutual aid to Mexico. What's happening across the border is a major problem. There's a humanitarian crisis in Tijuana where their hospitals are at capacity. They sent home anyone age 60 or over, which meant they lost a lot of their clinical knowledge as well in their medical teams. So thankfully, a lot of our clinical leadership's been going over there and sharing some of the lessons that we've learned here in San Diego. But just like everywhere else, they have shortages on PPE. Now that that's becoming more available, we need to give some serious thought to getting PPE over into Mexico as well. Some people think that because the border is shut down to immigration, that the border is shut down, but it's not shut down at all. It's definitely reduced capacity, but it has 50,000 people coming across every day that are part of our essential workforce. Many of them work in our healthcare system. So we've done a couple things because we can't just sit around and wait for everything to fail. You see the big numbers in the South Bay for a reason. We have 265,000 expats, US citizens living in Mexico. When their hospital system is not doing well, they're coming back to the US to receive their care. But when they're coming back, they're in critical need. And we even had a patient die in the doorway of the hospital that came over by private vehicle. Now, it's important that we get our data separated so that we can better understand how the border is impacting us as a region. But since there hasn't been any interest in doing so, I've just started with a prevention strategy for our region. For example, we need to do health screenings just north of the border. So we're coming up with a creative way to provide health screenings there, testing there. We need to better triage people into the healthcare system. If you've been to the hospital lately, you go through a triage tent on the way in so that they make sure that you're appropriate in the emergency department versus somewhere else. We also have the green light from the federal government. If any of our essential workforce, our healthcare workers, want to proactively stay in the United States through this pandemic, they can do that and it will be reimbursed under FEMA. So again, we have to spend some dollars proactively to stop what could be a reinfection of our region and some big, big tragedies in Mexico as well. The virus doesn't stop at the border. And so I just want you to know that if you asked me what our greatest threat is to stop our effective reopening or make us have to step back, it's going to be Mexico. So we have to start talking about it and acknowledge what's going on there too.
So I know we're getting to the 3 o'clock hour, Supervisor. So maybe just a couple more quick questions, unless you've got to go. I got one note from somebody that asked you to run for mayor. I assume they don't mean rerun for mayor in Encinitas and run for City of San Diego mayor, although our members on this line that live in the city of Encinitas probably wish you were still the mayor there, not because they don't wish you were supervisor, but they could use the help there.
See, I'm tortured already.
You've got your hands full, that's for sure.
Thank you for your confidence in my leadership. I really appreciate it.
Well, on the PPE side, I know you noted that the PPE supplies are coming back, but I talked to a lot of vendors around town because businesses are now being required to provide PPEs and people have to wear masks, et cetera. But actually the supply chain is still broken, very much so. What are your thoughts about the county and government agencies helping source for private industry so that private industry can actually reopen with the rules that are being put in place?
It's a really good question, and there's a disconnect somewhere. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it because the federal government laughs at you when you tell them that we can't get PPE in our hospital system. They're like, what are you even talking about? There's so much PPE out there, but it's funneling through the state. So I have to get to the bottom of where the holdup is at the state level for us to receive PPE. Every order we put in, we get about 10% of what we ask for. What I've inquired about doing is some sort of a co-op, because we have not only our business community that needs this, our faith-based organizations have been asking, and now that I've been working a lot with the athletic organizations, same thing. So how can we effectively buy in bulk and allow our businesses to purchase through the county? I'm checking into that right now. As soon as I have more information, I'll let you know. I think it would be really smart for us to go in together because it will drive the costs down. There's a ton of price gouging out there right now because they know that businesses are in need. So you'll see these masks marked up to $6 and they should be selling in the dollar range. So I'm checking it on for you.
Thank you very much. Last question, the restaurants, with the reopening announced last night, there was some nifty guidance put on the county website for signage. We've been repeatedly asking for signage for just your general businesses that the county can at least provide us PDFs that can be printed. Could you maybe put in a word with the health department to get that going? Because it would be very helpful for our folks who they see the language that's being asked for, but they're concerned about their own liability if somebody were to come by and tell them they don't have the right signage posted in their window or in their workplaces. It'd be helpful to have that.
I agree. We need kind of a handy toolkit because there have been so many changes. This is just a rapidly moving environment. There are rules that you have at the local level. There are rules that you have at the state level. Everywhere it's sign clutter. It's just ridiculous how much signage. Also want to kind of reduce that sign clutter in your business. So if there's a way to do some sort of toolkit, I'd be happy to look into how we might simplify. There's so much information thrown at you, it's hard to keep up with. I know our business community wants to be in compliance, and they're concerned that they'll fall out of compliance out of ignorance of some new policy. So I'm here to help and support you. Please know that if something were to go wrong, let's just say you were tattled on, something wasn't right about your business, please know that everyone's really understanding right now. You would have one of our deputies show up there and take a look at what's going on, but they're really issuing, hey, just kind of the fix it warning type of deal. So don't be so stressed out over everything that has to happen because there's a ridiculous amount of rules right now. And like I said, not sustainable at all. Nothing normal about anything that's going on. If I look out my window right now, the drinking fountains are literally duct taped over with plastic bags because you don't even want to think about taking a drink out of one of those. And there's stanchions around every last piece of play equipment. So like I said in my opening, I can't wait till I can just hug y'all and this all goes away. And hopefully it's all just been a bad dream. We wake up tomorrow and everything's normal.
Thank you, Supervisor. I really appreciate all of your insight and your leadership. Specifically, I think your continued efforts at the board and your ongoing support for the San Diego business community. As I mentioned to Mayor Faulconer, it's folks like you. We really need your leadership and support right now as a community. We've been absolutely devastated as an industry by what's happening, and it's going to take a while for us to crawl out of this hole. So, moving.
Can I say one more thing about, and I know you were asking Mayor Faulconer about the moratoriums on the evictions. We have to move forward, and this is really terrible to, be in a place where we can't continue to provide this type of relief. It's not sustainable to keep that eviction moratorium in place. We have to come up with other options because, I'm a commercial property owner as well, and that helps cover expenses for us and keep our business running. So we have to be real thoughtful. And one day our public health officer at an event said that we've, as San Diegans, have been asked to make small sacrifices. And there's nothing small about the sacrifices that we have all been asked to make. And I want you to know, because I'm in this situation where I have these unique vantage points, I am going to fight with every last fiber of my being to restore San Diego County. And I understand the enormous sacrifices that we've made as a community. And I'm very proud of all of us, because we are the ones that are going to turn this around. We are the ones that are going to lead us out of this public health crisis. So thank you for the opportunity to address all of you today. And please let me know how I can help you as an industry, as you're always my think tank, whether you want to be or not.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time today. And for those of you on the call, we're going to continue to have these ongoing webinars and keep checking your emails from Karen. We really appreciate your attendance today. And thank you for all you're doing as an industry.